Hello, everyone. Welcome to season one, episode number 10 of the Wired Nerdy podcast. My name is Keith. I am here with Doug. Doug, I
Hey,
keep saying this every time. The number keeps going up. Do you think we'd ever make it to 10?
no, we're doing good. This is a little bit of a milestone, episode 10.
It is. It's double digits, and the numbers
Exciting.
have been consistent though, on
Yep.
viewage for friends and family. And we even have some, people picking up from other places.
Yeah.
So hopefully the audience keeps growing, man. I'm having fun. That's all that matters.
Yeah. I've looked at the numbers and we're worldwide. Got a couple different countries.
We
So we're
do.
doing good.
We do some out of the UK, and so it's really kind of cool to see that. And again, I think I said it at the end of last episode. I love the questions that we're getting to, and just the cool things that we're sharing with one another, with all these different topics and that sort of thing, and what we're learning. That's honestly the best byproduct of all this, in my opinion. So it's
Yep.
it's pretty awesome. So hopefully the week is treating you well, Doug. It's going pretty fast for me.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
yeah, it's been good though. It's been good. So we're just gonna jump right into it, everybody. Let's get right into our nerd news here. Doug, I'm gonna let you start us off, man. What's the top of our list that we have for this week?
Yeah. I've been seeing, not really trailers, but I've been seeing some news about the Harry Potter reboot coming to HBO Max.
That's right. I
So,
saw that. And there was a lot of controversy about whether J.K. Rowling was going to be included or not. I know a lot of her fan base is divided because of what they feel is anti-trans sentiment, things like that.
mhm.
Uh, what's interesting though is what I read was she is going to be involved in the project just to ensure that it honors the source material, but she's not going to be a showrunner or anything.
Yeah.
So I think that would appease fans. I mean, she did write it, let her
Right.
stay engaged. However, maybe her not being so directly involved will also kind of appease it. I don't know. I think they're trying to walk that line of appeasing the population, and but also getting something made. I'm curious as to why they feel the need to
Yeah.
reboot it.
And that's my question as well. Is you have such a die-hard fan base. Even with I believe World Disney, Disney World has Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and then you have all these conventions and stuff. I mean, your fan base for this series and this franchise is so deep that if they get something wrong, I think it's going to be bad for them.
Yeah, and a correction there, just so you know, it's Universal.
Oh,
So it's easy though
yes,
because
keep me honest over here.
it's easy though because to get them confused, only because Disney World obviously is in Orlando, but in the same city is Universal Studios
Okay,
theme park,
yeah.
which has Harry Potter. So they're kind of like competing franchises, And fun fact: the first time I was able to actually go was I went to a Microsoft conference. No joke, man. They didn't mess around, and this is way pre-pandemic. So they always had at this Microsoft conference, a which is all for IT tech people. All day long you're learning, you're in sessions, learning about their
Mhm.
products. But they always do one event, and oftentimes it's very common to have like a concert or some big name concert. Well,
That's pretty
what they
cool.
did one night, and it was in Orlando, they actually shut down Universal Studios theme park and just let all of the people who went to the Microsoft conference go to it. And it
That is
was
awesome.
wide open free food. Like you just would walk up to a vendor that you would normally have to pay for food, and then they would just give you whatever you wanted. You didn't pay anything. It was all on Microsoft tab. I remember the Uber driver was telling us, like, they worked at Universal, and they said that just to do that for like the set of 5 hours or whatever in the evening, and they kicked everyone out of the park. It cost them like it was insane. It was like $10 million
Oh man.
to do that, and it was nuts. But that was my first time getting to see the Harry Potter world at Universal Studios there. But it's a pretty cool place if
Yeah.
people are into that and that kind of thing. But I'm with you. Why reboot it? The movies are really good.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
probably, I would dare say, one of the best book adaptations out there
Yeah.
of stories, because oftentimes it doesn't go over very well.
No, the books to the movies, I've read and watched both. They're great. Now the books, a little more detailed. I couldn't really get into them. I'm more of a visual learner, visual observer.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm just kind of worried. They've done Game of Thrones, but that turned out really well, so that's good. They
did.
did House of Dragons. I don't know that that's as popular as Game of
Yeah,
Thrones.
I haven't seen it, and it's because House of Dragons is not necessarily rooted in George R. Martin's source material. They're kind of we talked about, I think, last episode about what ends up happening. What's going to happen with The Last of Us, and the fact that are they going to go in a different direction if they start going into territory that the source material hasn't covered? What happens then? And we saw that with Game of Thrones, and
Yeah.
they. Uh, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody because we're not talking about Game of Thrones, but they botched the ending, in my opinion, and a lot of people feel that way. All that build up, Game of Thrones was awesome, and then the very end just kind of got botched. And even the author himself was very disturbed by the ending. Now, to be fair, he hadn't wrote the last book. There was no ending yet. And so they just kind of had to do what they had to do. But from what I understand, he either is writing or he's going to finish. I'll have to look that up, that last book, and put his own. It would be a different ending than the way they ended the show on it. So,
Yeah.
but I'm sure you're going to get into things like that, whenever you're doing these screen adaptations. So I just don't get the need unless you're trying to milk the
Uh,
cow.
yeah, I think that's it. I mean, it's been, like I said, done so well that why start it over? So,
Well, and they've also, you can't say that they're not taking advantage of the universe that they've created, because one,
mhm.
Fantastic Beast was not based on any novels. And personally, I like Fantastic Beasts a
I
little
did too.
better than I do
I
Harry
thought they were
Potter.
good.
My son and my daughter might smack me if they heard me say that. I think I have
Yeah.
said it to them
Yeah.
before, but they haven't smacked me. Either way, I know they're huge Harry Potter fans. But to me, I kind of like Fantastic Beast a little better. Just
Yeah.
the story, the characters are kind of cool. And then look at the video game, like what just came out with Hogwarts Legacy. It is amazing, and it's in a completely different times. So they're doing different things in the universe, and they're popular and they're well done.
Yeah.
Why Harry Potter? Now, I had also read that there was a play that was written, which was The Cursed Child. It's supposed to explain what happens after Harry's older and he gets married to Jenny and all that stuff. I
Now
never
that'd be
saw it.
interesting to look at.
Well, they're going to adapt it supposedly from the stage, which it was for stage plays for a
Mhm.
play, and they're going to actually do it for film. So it is coming at some point. I think they're in negotiations with Daniel Radcliffe and the cast and all that, and trying to figure all that out. So I don't know. They're just on the Harry Potter train, I guess, and so
Yeah.
they're just trying to remember. That's the only thing I figure is about money, but I don't get why reboot it. It was done so well. I don't know.
So I recently went to a Potter-esque play at a local high school called The Puffs, I believe, and
Yeah.
I thought it was really well done and kind of to see the different houses. They focus on Gryffindor and Slytherin, but to see a different house and how they act and what they're doing is really cool. So that play
Yeah.
was good.
They focus on the Hufflepuffs, and that was originally a Broadway show as well. It was, you're right, I saw the same production locally. It was excellent, and the script and the story and the way they did it was awesome. And
Yeah.
it's so funny how they ride the line of licensing, because it's not official, it's not sanctioned by, so they never mention Harry Potter by name. They never
Yes.
say the
Yeah.
full house names, but you can tell, like, it's funny how they rode that line. Fine, they did a
Yeah.
great job at it, though.
I
It was
thought it was
awesome.
good. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was a really good play. Really enjoyed it. So we'll move on to the next thing. So I guess it's my turn this time. So we're getting into this. You've seen this theme, and I'm going to go back to why. But Disney announced that they are now going to do a live action version of Moana. Now it's been about 7 years since the original animated feature had released. Right now, so that was the announcement. But right now they're working on, and they just finalized casting on a live action version of Lilo and Stitch.
Oh.
Again, why? Now I know
Yeah.
they started with the Disney princesses. They did Beauty and the Beast. I know
Yep.
Little Mermaid, and there's a whole controversy about who they cast, all that kind of crazy stuff. It's interesting that they're trying their hand at doing this. They did Jungle Book. That was another one. And all of those were okay. Like, they're decent. Why?
Yeah.
You know? I don't get it. I don't get it.
It the thought of, do they not have an original idea? But I guess it is a different concept. It's
It is. And I'm
yeah.
okay with like different takes on stuff,
They
but
can
it
put
is.
more adult themed, material in there maybe with the live action.
Maybe, but of the ones that I've seen so far,
Still for kids, yeah.
they stay very true to the story beats. Like if you go and watch Jungle Book, I mean, there's a few variances with Jungle Book that are different than the original cartoon, but yeah, it's still family friendly. It feels like a money grab to me.
Yeah.
I'm curious about Lilo and Stitch. What is Stitch going to look like?
Yeah.
in live
I mean,
action.
he's also has almost has to be, 3D rendered or computer generated, yeah.
They're gonna have to. Well, and I'm sure they will. But how far will they deviate from the cartoon? That's the big
Yes.
question.
The
A lot
cartoon
of
was
people.
great, I liked it.
Oh, it was wonderful. But like a lot of people, there's controversy about the Little Mermaid. Sebastian, the way he looks, if you go out and I'll put a picture up. There's
Yep,
comparisons the way he looks in the cartoon versus the way he looks, and there's like arguments, people saying, wait a minute, Sebastian was a crab and not a lobster. And like this, the way that they made him look in the live action movie does not do justice to apparently the way that he looked in the cartoon. So
yeah.
they're going to get into that. I mean, you're going to do that with Stitch, obviously. So it's interesting, man. I don't know why Disney's doing it. So, but
Yeah.
more power to them. They're a powerhouse. So they're just going to keep churning those things out, making that money. So what's next on the list, man?
So, Barbie movie, and this will be a quick topic. It looks very pink, very colorful,
Yeah.
very, I don't know what else to call it,
There's
but
an
it's got some
expand.
big A-list,
Oh,
actors in it. I
oh
mean, the
yeah.
list goes on and on.
Yeah. It's got, in if you all haven't noticed this week, why it's on our news is that they have an expanded second trailer finally,
Yep.
and it actually shows way more of what the movie is. And, um, it has Ryan Gosling in it. It has the guy from Shang-Chi in it, and his name is Simu Lee. Who else was on that list that I know you
Yeah,
have
I
there?
mean, the list is great. Helen Mirren, John Cena, Will Ferrell, Michael Cera, which Michael Cera, he hasn't been in a movie in a minute.
I don't know.
So
Wow.
him coming back.
It looks great.
Um, yeah, it just the list of actors. Hopefully, it's going to be entertaining and good. And
Well, I like that the trailer doesn't look like they take themselves too seriously. Like they show Barbie getting out of her shoes and her foot is still arched, just like the
yeah,
Barbie doll. It's like little,
so
there's funny things like that. So definitely encourage you to check out the trailer on that. I'm sure I'll put some of that up while we're talking about it here. But we're on a movie kick, so I've got the next one. I'm gonna tell you, I have been resistant to this movie, and they finally released the trailer. But after seeing the trailer, I'm interested now. So it is from DC, and as you know, DC is going through a major shakeup with James Gunn, who is now helming the whole thing. But this one is Blue Beetle. Now, Blue Beetle. I didn't collect the comics. I never read them. I do know
no,
of the Blue Beetle. It's very obscure. We're talking like, not talked about a lot. And a lot of people roll their eyes and like, why are they focusing on, these smaller characters and this sort of thing?
yeah,
So I had that same attitude because I'm like, look, you got like all these big characters you could do stuff with. Why Blue Beetle? However, the trailer dropped. It's got the kid in it from Cobra Kai, which I didn't know he was even in it. He's the main protagonist. It looks really good. It looks
it
funny. It
does.
has a Spider-Man kind of feel to it,
And
young
I got a
kid.
point here in a sec to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you see it? Did
Oh,
you? Yeah.
yeah, so I watched the trailer, and I don't know anything about Blue Beetle, but, one of the scenes and, if you go out there and watch the trailer, he has these arms and these wings, so to me, it was kinda mix of, like, the Wasp from the Ant-Man series, and then there
Fair.
was a mix of, Spider-Man, and I don't know what that suit was called, but when his arms come
Looks
out.
like it. Yeah. The
Yeah.
one that we saw in the Infinity Wars that
Yes.
Tony Stark had
So
gotten him. Yeah. It's a Tony
So,
Stark suit.
that,
Yeah.
caught my eye for that. I'm like, "Oh, did they take from that, or is he his own, like, character?"
Well,
So
and it's important to note you will see parallels always between Marvel and DC, and the reason why, not to, well, I guess I could nerd out because we're on the Wired Nerdy podcast,
yeah,
but
go
the
ahead.
history, the brief history lesson is that throughout the years and the decades, Marvel and DC were always taking swipes at each other. So that's why there's some confusion where you'd have a Captain Marvel over in one camp versus that was kind of a swipe at them as a Marvel company, and then where you have Darkseid and Thanos. So there's parallels because there were a couple things happening. Not only were they competitors, but there weren't really trade unions at that time. And what would happen is the artist and the writers would commonly swap back and forth. So you would have somebody who just got done on a drawing or a writing run on X-Men, and next thing you know, they're doing Justice League. Will that art style and those ideas, if you're a writer, come with you? So it's a combination of competition and also shared talent pool because it was a limited talent pool, especially whenever you're going through like the 60s. in the 70s and even earlier than that. But it happened even in the 80s. And even today, you have talent that swats back and forth. They're just a little bit more cognizant of copying each other. But that's why you see that in films. And a lot of people, when they get in the argument about DC versus Marvel, they don't understand that really there's DNA shared between them because they shared the same talent that developed the stories. So,
Mhm.
story time over.
No, that's really cool. I like that, and, that kinda makes sense because the trailer matches some of the other stuff I've seen, so
Yeah, it looks really, really good. And there's like
it
all
does.
kinds of jokes in there about, if you watch the trailer, they make a joke about Batman being a fascist. I love that. I
Yeah.
love how it doesn't look like it takes itself seriously, which honestly I think is needed because a lot of the comic book films are pretty serious. So, all right, man, what's next on the list? We got still a few more to go. There's a lot going on here this
Yeah,
week.
lots of things. So 2 days ago, we only missed about 2 days, the 50th anniversary of cell phones
Wow.
happened, 2 days ago. So back in, April 3rd of '73, a Dr. Martin Cooper with Motorola designed the first commercially available, we should say that, things probably start for business and for government first, but then the first commercially available, cell phone,
Yep.
was there. It was pretty awesome.
And boy, talk about a defining point in history. There's a video of him out there. I believe he's making the first phone call, and there's even videos of him doing it from a car phone.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, yeah. So it's actually pretty interesting history that they got some really good footage out there. But who would have thought? And again, it's kind of like what I said before. A lot of people see this and like, why would I need that? I got my landline, but it's not being able to see what the potential is of it. Just like with the internet, just like with
yeah.
AI right now, and all these things. So you have these defining moments in technology, and it's like we don't really figure out how we're going to leverage them until a little bit later on down the line. So that's a good call out.
Yep, and, we'll definitely throw a picture up on here, but I can describe it for our audio listeners. It's like the size of a half-gallon milk jug, no screen at all. Well, a screen for your number. It's in that good old red format, and you probably know the name of that, screen.
You weren't, you were not gonna be texting on that bad boy. That was pre-texting
Oh,
even.
yeah. No, not at
Yeah,
all.
those were LCD based strings, liquid crystal
Okay.
displays, but they were the early versions of them. So, yeah, we'll definitely get a picture of that up there, but we've come a long way, haven't we? Now that we have, like, supercomputers in our pocket, so
I'll just share this, I thought it was interesting. The retail price back in '84 was 3,995, not
that's
4,000,
all?
it's 3,995. So,
Well, that's a
in
deal.
today's yeah,
So, Doug, the next time you wanna buy that next Pixel
cell
phone
phone, I'm
and you're
like,
complaining to me
"Shh."
about it being $1,000 or
Right.
$1,500, I'm like, "Hey, man, the Motorola was 3,000." Maybe
So
that'll
to
work if you tell Ashley that. Do you think that argument will work? Say, "Hey, Ashley,
I
it
highly
used
doubt
to be
that, yeah.
$3,000, but this Pixel phone, it's only
Yeah.
$1,500."
She'll be like, no." So that was just really interesting. I mean,
That's really
brand
cool.
new technology, you hear about, VCRs, if people
Yeah.
don't know, and DVD players and stuff all being super duper expensive when they first came out too, so
Yeah, it's interesting to go back and look at technology and see what they were charging, what MSRP was, especially for like PCs and stuff. I mean,
Oh,
PCs
yeah.
coming in home. I mean, geez, dude, I remember if you wanted an okay, decent PC, you're dropping 3 grand.
Yeah.
So it's nuts. But as it becomes more popular, prices go down, supply and demand, all those things that it democratizes, so it gets better. So we are definitely seeing the benefit of that today. All right, brother. The next one on the list, I thought of you because I know recently you mentioned we were talking about what games we were playing. Call of Duty, the company that develops Call of Duty, is cracking down on cheaters.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what's interesting about this is that it's a specific type of cheater. So, up to this point, there's always been scripts or headshot scripts in games, especially first person shooters. And it's always been a thing, and the idea behind it is typically there's a software that's running and it gives you an edge, meaning that if Doug and I are playing, I don't have to worry about like actually aiming on him. It does like an
Mhm.
auto aim, or it always makes sure that, my shots always detect his head and I can hit him. All right. Well, there's anti cheat software that has been incorporated in games, especially when it comes to tournament play, because that's not fair, especially if you're playing for
No,
money.
not at all.
And so they've gone to great lengths to tamp down on the software. And for the most part, they've got all the software scripts, but there's been one area that has been lacking for some time now, and that is there are hardware cheats. Um, And this is their attempt to do that. These are called XIM based hardware platforms. Two of the more common ones is the Chorus Zen and the Ria Snow S1. Essentially, it's a box and it has a small logic chip in it. And what it does is you plug your controller into that box and then you plug it into your PC. So it's between you and your PC, or it even works on PlayStation and Xbox and other platforms. Now, initially, these hardwares were designed to allow you to use any controller you want with any device. So
Mhm.
it's pretty innocuous, simple. This is what we want to use it for. However, with updates, they now have the ability to inject scripts into the
Yes.
hardware. So those scripts that they were trying to get out of the games for cheating are now being run by that hardware box. Now, why is that a big deal? Because your computer will just see that box as another peripheral. It's no different than a mouse, and it's very hard to detect. So what they're trying to do now is patch these games and make it to where you can't use those devices. What's even funnier is that on the article, and I'll make sure I post it,
Yeah.
these developers, especially with like Fortnite and even with Call of Duty, if not only are they just like they could permanent ban you. Okay, that's one thing that they can do,
Yeah.
but which is a big deal, right? They can block you from all versions of Call of Duty on the game. However, so there goes your online play, unless you go get another account, all that stuff.
Right.
However,
Yeah.
they are instituting, if they detect you, uh, crazy things will start happening to you. So, like, they'll basically counteract with if you're using, auto aim, for example, or reduce recoil, they can make it to where either they increase your recoil like a crazy, or they make you walk backwards whenever you're trying to walk forwards. And so, I actually kind of like the idea.
I do
uh,
too.
it gives you a handicap. So, Doug, what do you
Yeah.
think about it? You play these games, man. Like, what's your thoughts on this?
I've experienced quite a bit of cheating both on console and PC side, and it is just so frustrating. And I am nowhere near a competition or play for a living, streaming and stuff, but it really makes it frustrating. It's funny you say that they're doing those tactics because I've watched some videos where they'll catch a cheater somehow, the software will catch a cheater, and then the cheater's gun disappears and they can't
Yes,
access their inventory and stuff.
that's one of the things they do.
Yep. I say good for them. These cheaters, as you call them, or not as you call them, as we call them, are skirting around the software and stuff and using hardware to try to beat the system.
I'll use the term my son, the gamer, the hardcore gamer uses who does
I'm
esports.
sure he's passionate about this as well.
Well,
Yeah.
he says, well, technically they're not
Uh,
cheating. He's because they're not manipulating the game code according to him, but they're exploits. That's
oh,
what he
okay.
would point out,
Okay.
because he and
Gotcha.
I had this conversation about this, and it's interesting because beyond not only are they trying to detect the hardware piece and crack down on it, but they are also doing instant replays of
No,
matches. So if you tag me and report me for potential cheating or abuse, they have the ability to go back and look at our match. And it's taking log files and they can analyze it and all this kind of stuff. It's
I
almost like
did not
doing
know that.
forensics. Yeah. And that's how and it's resulted, since they started doing that recently with the most recent Call of Duty, it's resulted in quite a few permanent bans.
Oh man.
And so it's interesting how they're going about this. So,
Now I like that because you get these players that are not cheating and they may just have such a good skill level. And that's not me. I'm not saying that at all. But you get these and then someone gets mad that you kill them and they report you. So it's good that they're kind of filtering through the bad reports and the good reports at the same time.
it makes me wonder if they have any false positives where somebody really is good and
Yeah.
maybe they think they're cheating. I don't know how. It'll be interesting to see how they like go about doing that.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I always said, I don't play a lot of these games. I'm a lifelong gamer. I'm not a competitive
Yeah.
player by any means, but I don't suck just because I've played a lot of games. However, it kind of makes me wonder, like, I'm just getting older in my reflexes, but maybe I have been cheated on. I just don't realize it in games, and
Yeah.
maybe I've been blaming myself, self-loathing, right? It's easier to think that than to think that I'm
Yeah.
just not good at it anymore, except getting older. So, all
So to kind of
right.
wrap this up, this reminds me of a thing I've seen like late night TV and infomercials. It's called the hip shot dot. And we can try to throw a picture up there, but it's literally like a little suction cup with an LED that so you aim on your game. So you
Mhm.
see where your sight is. It's usually in the center. And then you literally put this little suction cup with a LED light on the front of your TV.
And it helps you get Like
Yeah, so
headshots?
as soon as you have your enemy, I guess, in that little red dot, you pull the trigger on your game, and it's supposed to go right there.
I don't know how they're
Kind
gonna
of those
detect.
quick shots.
I don't know how they're gonna detect suction cups on your TV. I'm so
Yeah,
anal
so
about my
no
screens. I
idea.
wouldn't want anything stuck to my TV. That would drive me
No,
insane.
it would drive me crazy, yeah.
I had not known about that. We'll get a picture of that and throw that up. Wow, there's always a way, right? There's always a
Oh, yeah.
workaround. It's like with hacking. There's always a way. Don't ever think you're impenetrable. All right, brother. What is next on the list, man?
Alright, yeah, we're kinda winding down, Levi jeans, we keep going back to AI technology,
It
just
wouldn't be
no.
2023 if it wasn't for Nerdy
See,
News having an
no.
AI article every week.
I had to interrupt myself because 'cause I'm like, "We're just going back to it," but, the Levi's Jean Company is using AI generated models, and that's causing quite a stir based on diversity and taking humans out of jobs, basically. You have these models that are not getting callbacks and not getting jobs because it's computer generated image, so
Exactly. They've been called under fire quite a bit for it. And there's always been this fear that AI is going to take jobs. What's hilarious is that uh, the examples always brought up is like, oh, car manufacturing, like, or robots will take over that, or, you know, but what's funny is modeling.
yeah.
Because and it's funny, I will make sure I get images up. They're actually really good, and the statement from the Levi Jean Company was they wanted to promote diversity in cultures and ethnicities. So the way they're doing it is by creating fake people that look very real using artificial intelligence. Well, of course, where they got in trouble was like, "Why aren't you using real people?"
Right,
I
absolutely.
I think it's interesting because it's very sci-fi, because even in the article, it's one of the first times where you have this growing anti-AI sentiment. And, I don't know if you ever watched, Westworld or anything like
Oh,
that,
yeah. Yeah.
but it's interesting to where people are slowly starting to take on this whole, hey, wait a minute, a distrust of AI. And
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
it's moving so fast, especially this year. I mean, look, every week we have a new AI thing. It's moving so fast. People are trying to process and understand what it is. How does it fit in? When is
Mhm.
it a tool? When is it bad? When does it impact me? And I think companies are too. I think companies see, oh, wow, we can save tons of money and not having to pay for models,
Yeah,
and we can make them look amazing. And then they get backlash.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
you pay
fascinating.
one programmer to make all your models for you, and you've saved, who knows how much money
Oh, yeah.
by the photographers and the designers, and
You
there's so
can't blame the
much.
companies because they're
No.
after, but
Yeah.
as a creative, that sucks
It
because you spend your whole life as a photographer or even as a model or somebody who creates, and then it's being robbed away from you. And so, yeah,
absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
it's definitely going to be an interesting thing to see play out. So I think Levi is learning that from a PR standpoint right now.
Yes, big time.
All right, next thing on the list.
Yeah, you
We
got
got
this.
we got two more to go here. All right. So the creator of Settlers of Catan, the board game, which was introduced in 1995, has passed away.
Oh, no.
Now, what was fascinating about this? So he was 70. His name was Klaus Tuber. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. It has sold over 40 million copies, according to the New York Times. Uh, what's interesting is I did not know that it was introduced in 1995, because it seems like to me that the game has taken on popularity in the main consciousness of everybody in the 2000s. We're talking
Yeah.
like from
Mhm.
2015 and up. That's when I first heard about it. I had no clue it was based in the 90s. So it's a great game. Played it, love playing it with my family.
Yeah.
It's fun,
Same.
but it's very sad that he passed away. I know you like to play that game every so often.
Yeah. So we were introduced to it by a good friend of ours. He bought the base game, couple expansions, so we bought it as well. To kind of explain it, it's a, civilization building, supply and resource trading.
Resource management. Yep.
Yeah. So it's a really fun game. It takes quite a bit, but you sit there, have some snacks, have some drinks, and play with your friends. It's really cool.
And it has like a monopoly feel to it in a way. It's not about money, but resources are finite. There's only so
Mm,
many resources,
yes.
and it's like what remind me, sheep,
Yeah.
grain. It's been a while since I played this.
Ore, brick,
Or
and wheat,
there you
I
go. And
believe.
and there's only so many of them. So you get
Yeah.
to a point where once all the resources are relatively delved out, now you have to barter with other people and take
Yeah,
over these
absolutely
tiles.
do.
And
Yeah.
so it's got a monopoly feel, but it feels like a civilization management game too, because you're trying to manage resources, you're trying to build roads, trying to build trade routes. It's a really good game. It's
It
it's
is.
it's a
Yeah,
lot of
I
fun.
like it a lot.
We got into recently playing it with our son again a few months ago, and I got on this kick. I'm like, oh wow, this is really good, and I found a 3D version of it at
Oh, man.
Target, and holy cow, it was hundreds of dollars. So it looked really cool because it had like the mountains, everything was
Mhm.
like raised, and it looks so cool, very
That looks
vibrant
sounds
colors.
awesome.
But it was like hundreds of bucks. Like I mean, I'll throw it up. It's got to be
You're
like
not
two
that
hundred
diehard
dollars.
of a fan there,
I was
yeah.
like, no, I'm gonna stick with my. I can stick with my cards. So all right, brother. The last one I say for you, because it gets into the law enforcement realm. It's
Yeah.
interesting. It's a creative use of what we've seen been going on over at Boston Dynamics. Before you dive into that, I just want to explain Boston Dynamics is a developer of robots, and they've made a lot of advancements in as of late. So, Doug, what's our last nerd news article here related to Boston Dynamic robots?
Yep. They are currently, well, not currently, but they do a lot of research with robots. They have a little robot dog that the Australian military is using. Um, I believe it can haul some stuff for them, and it runs out front, may detect mines in the ground, and it does some video and audio surveillance. So pretty good. It's keeping the soldiers safe, keeping them out of harm's way.
And they
So
can be
it's a really cool
autonomous.
invention.
They can be autonomous, or they can be controlled by soldiers.
I believe so,
Uh,
yep.
I know the U.S. military has been using them as pack mules. They can carry a lot of weight. They're very versatile, and they're able to all types of terrain. They're creepy. If you've ever watched Black Mirror on Netflix, highly recommend it. It's like the
Yes.
modern day Twilight Zone, but there's each episode is a different story, and it's a cautionary tale. And there's one called Metalhead, and it looks just like this dog, and it's about what goes wrong when we rely on AI goes rogue and all that. But really it's about how these robots are starting to become mainstream. Another cited inside that same article wasn't just talking about Australia, but they were mentioning that I believe it is South Korea's police force is using them as well for patrols. Um, and they're really it's kind of interesting how they're relying on them to keep soldiers safe. So they said, yeah, South Korea began integrating the mechanical beast into the police force as of 2018. So it's been a little while. They come equipped with cameras and sensors to detect suspicious behavior. Singapore unleashed the four-legged robot dog onto the public to assist authorities with patrol services as well. And then it says here that the NYPD has been using them in a lot of these. It's really good for bomb stuff, for suspicious packages, investigating hazard environments. It's fascinating if you think about it. I mean, you
Yeah,
can send these in, eyes and ears. They're very versatile, especially the biped 2 feet ones that you've seen. I think most of them are using the four-legged kind.
I
But if
believe
you
so, yeah.
think about, like, especially if it not take a set aside that it's not autonomous, you can just control it. It's like a drone, and it makes me wonder at what point are we going to be fighting proxy wars. We always talk about we're already using drones that fly a lot.
Yes.
They're very effective. It'd be interesting to see what about robots, you know and having them battle it out. I was thinking that movie with Hugh Jackman, remembers the steel, what was that called, Real Steel.
Yeah.
And it's
Where
a good
he's the
movie.
boxer, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but they control. He was a boxer, but now boxing has transcended. It's these robots that box, but people control them.
yeah,
And it's a great movie. Check it out, by the way. So it's interesting. We have all of these stories in science fiction, and the stuff that's going on around us just seems like it's all part of one big movie. So I don't know
yeah.
if you've ever messed with any of these in your time with the police force or ever got to see one.
Yeah, so that could be a whole show in itself, but the law enforcement community has used robots for so long, mostly for bomb disposal and detection and stuff. I think with the addition of this dog, as they're calling it, I don't know the official name, but they can put some bomb sniffing sensors on it and cameras and stuff to help out with crisis negotiation and terroristic activities.
Mount a gun
Not
to it,
to, yeah,
send it in after somebody with a gun on
You're I
it.
think the public is mostly worried, or not worried, sorry, has seen the, kind of Wall-E version with the 2 tracks and the little arm and the camera,
Yeah,
but, they're definitely getting more advanced. I like it. I like that we're keeping, actual humans out of harm's way. I mean, if a bucket of bolts gets damaged, then, I think that's fine.
that's replaceable, right? So it is cool. I love it
Absolutely.
when you see technology being used in positive ways. And so, it's a tool like all things. It's either can be used
Definitely.
for good things or bad things. So, all right, brother. Boy, that was a long nerd
Lots of stuff
news.
going on. We go
I
some weeks, nothing, and
I
then,
know.
yeah,
High tide, low tide. So we have our main topic today, which I'm sporting the shirt here. It's about GameStop. Have you been in a GameStop recently?
I
The
have, and
store, the brick and mortar.
there's not much left.
No, it's picked over. GameStop has been suffering, and I swear they're hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it. There's a lot of reasons why. Now they did get a surge in stock price. There was a whole controversy about a year ago where inside of different forums, they're like, I believe it was like Reddit and things like that,
Mhm.
where people were able to manipulate the stock price, and a bunch of people like were able to buy it. Like they basically encouraged people to buy the stock because it was super super low, and spreading rumors and things like that. And then there was a run on it, meaning that all these people kept buying GameStop stock. Well, then the value just, it was like an influx of cash,
I
and
think it went way up.
it went through the roof. And then all these people
Yeah.
cashed out on and it happened like 2 times. And it actually resulted in some regulatory things with shares and buying and trading and all that kind of stuff. It was a big deal. There's a whole documentary, I believe it's on Amazon. However, it's a part of the narrative of, it's dying. I went in recently, and you're right, dude. They had more Funko Pop toys, T-shirts, and collectibles than they did games. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
that's what I
Well, I
noticed.
think that's kind of their reach to hold on, to try to keep those stores in place of this is what's popular now. We got to push this stuff.
Yeah,
Because
it's
so,
it's definitely that.
yeah, I
Oh yeah,
think so many people, and this could be, we'll talk about this in a sec, go into digital content. So,
that's a huge part of it. Is I mean, look at it. The most recent, so consoles are up to recent history have been firmly rooted in media playback.
mhm.
Even going to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. I mean, they were predominantly, you know, disc based.
Yes. Yeah.
And so now with, the both platforms, they offer a disc version and a digital version.
Mhm.
So, and we talked about it last week. If you can, even though they sell these consoles with a 500 gig hard drive, you can slap a 4 terabyte in it. And that's a lot of storage.
Yeah.
So that makes digital really appealing. And the other advantage to digital is that you don't have to wait in line anymore for releases. You get it as long as you have a decent internet connection. You get it downloaded. Sometimes they're letting you even pre-download before
The
the
night
release,
before. Yeah.
so you get it early. It doesn't. You don't have. You always own it. As far as long as you have your account. I think the downside is it's not. At least on the console side. We'll talk about PC here in a moment. On the console side, it's not cheaper. The GameStop has really been successful in the retailing market and their tactics. Some people question whether it's ethical or not, but you can sell your games back to them after you beat them. You can sell them back, or you can even buy games cheaper. And they even have a pro membership line that where you get percentage off of all their used inventory. That has been great, and I think that's been keeping them afloat. However, as consoles specifically start to more veer towards the digital, also developers, it costs them money to print those CDs and to get
Yeah.
distribution and artwork and physical boxes and all that kind of stuff. So you can already see it; it's trending that way in the console space. I think the biggest negative to the digital is the cost. It rarely goes on sale on the console side. Now, I know on the Sony side, they do like spring sale they're doing right now. It's like 75% off, and you get some good ones, but it's still not discounted as deeply as the physical media,
No.
and the
Yeah.
used.
And to kind of go down memory lane, there's something about going to GameStop. I've been there, and Walmart and
Best
EB
Buy.
Games. I think that's what it used to be.
Yep. EB Games.
Sam Goody, way
Yep.
back in the day. So
Walden
there's something that,
Software,
yeah.
Babbage's, that's an old one. So those were all
Oh,
GameStop type style of stores. But they sold
yeah.
at a lot of them sold PC games before consoles. Because you would typically get your Nintendo games at like a toy store. You get your
Hmm.
Nintendo and your Atari games or Sega games, oftentimes at Toys R Us or
Yeah.
you would go to a KB Toys, like a toy store.
Those were amazing.
Yeah, but computer
Yeah.
games, big box computer games, you had to go to a
Yeah.
Babbage's, right? Or a Walden Software, which eventually became GameStop because they got bought out through a
Yeah.
few series. But that's a good call out. It's
Yeah.
nostalgia, right?
Yeah, something about going at midnight, standing in line in the cold, waiting. I stood in line
It's
for
exciting.
Grand Theft Auto game, couple Call of
Skyrim.
Duty games. I wish I would have joined
Ah,
Skyrim when you
you're
all
a late
did.
bloomer on Skyrim.
I know, yeah.
No, but you're right. There's an
Yeah,
experience factor to that. And it's kind of cool to be there with like-minded people, kind of like the Comic-Con thing we experienced recently,
absolutely, yeah,
and people excited. There's an energy to it. So there is something lost. And I think this goes back to our conversation we had last episode a little bit about what's happening with the movie theaters. There is a magic and a kinship to physically going to a location
yes,
and being able to share that experience with other people. So you are right. That is intangible. You can't measure that. And that is sad that that's
yeah,
being lost here. It's being lost in way of convenience, and it's so that you do have to mark that as a negative to
yeah,
it. But the console market, it'll be interesting. They're already announced that PlayStation's working on their next iteration. There'll be a PlayStation 5 Pro. They've already pretty much determined it. And then, of course, Xbox is doing the same. And then there'll be another iteration. It'll be interesting to see if the next gen will have drives in them. One
yeah.
article
I
I
was going to
read,
ask the same thing.
one article I read, they said there's a rumor that with both platforms that they may just be straight up digital. However, they'll have a USB CD drive attachment.
Oh, okay,
So now for backwards compatibility, that would be kind of cool.
that would be
Um,
good.
and I know there's a huge game collector market as well.
Hmm.
And so it'll be interesting to see how it impacts that, because if modern titles stop getting media released on consoles, what's going to happen to that space? Are those prices are they going to become even more rare, as a
Yeah,
collector? It's going to be interesting. Now, PC. PC left media a long time ago because of Steam. Steam came along, they did it really, really well, and pretty much all PC gaming is digital,
yeah,
and that's a huge, and it works really, really well. However, some would argue that there's not a lot of competition. Not sure, there are other market spaces out there, but Steam is definitely a monopoly, but they do it
yeah,
really, really, really well. And so, that's a whole other aspect of it. So it's interesting to see that console and PCs, they kind of compete, but their libraries are different. Where PC
yeah,
just went
definitely.
digital a long time ago, and consoles
Well,
haven't.
and I miss the good old days of what's called a big box. So, big box is you get this big box piece of game, you get a little manual, you might get a map for some stuff, you might get some extras, a little swag. Then you get your CD or your discs or your
Mhm.
floppies way back in the day.
Oh
I
yeah,
kind of miss that physical media plus the artwork on these big boxes was so
beautiful.
great. You could just display. I have some big boxes on the shelf over here from Command and Conquer. Love that series.
Mhm.
There's just something missed, I think, of going digital only. I mean, the convenience is amazing, like you said, with Steam. I have Steam, I have my entire library. Everything's right there, good to
It's
go.
convenient. Yeah,
But it's just there's something lost. I think we talked about records in the past episode, or yeah, past episode.
yeah, we did. Vinyl.
Does it come back? Do people want this physical media for kind of a nostalgia factor?
It might. What would be interesting though is, let's just pick one. Let's say that there's a Witcher. I'm going to go in the future. Let's say there's a Witcher version 5.
Mhm.
Well, if that game is 30 gig, they're gonna have to, media wise. I mean, top end Blu-ray, even. I mean, not gonna touch it. You're gonna have
Yeah, it
multiple
doesn't go that
Blu-rays,
high. Yeah,
so they'll have to throw it onto either an SSD or a thumb drive or multiple thumb
hmm
drive. There'd have to be a way that they would do that. I don't know how they would make a comeback. The advantage to vinyl is that music still fits on a vinyl.
yeah, yeah.
The media has
That's a
not
good thought.
outmatured the actual medium that you're putting it on. That's different with video games. They're getting larger, and they wouldn't fit. But that doesn't mean that they couldn't find a way, because
Yeah,
there's always find a way. And there's a market for that. Now, there's a lot of companies that they're redoing and re-releasing. And if you watch collectors like Metal Jesus is his name, is a guy out of Seattle, awesome YouTube channel, and
yeah,
his friend Radical Reggie, they're true collectors, like top tier. video game collectors, big box PC games, especially like Metal Jesus has. And what's really cool is they will showcase certain companies that are taking games and they're re-releasing them, but putting them on media.
Oh, now that's cool.
And so it's kind of a niche market in a way. So it's interesting what's going to happen with it, but it's really sad that what's going on with GameStop. They sell refurbished
Yeah.
consoles, which I think is a good thing because not everybody can afford brand new. I think that's good.
Mhm.
But as consoles start to make that pivot that PC already has, it's inevitable. And you also have the situation where not everybody has super fast internet if you're in a rural area. And I know that's a pain for a lot of people right now. And I've heard that, and I do sympathize. Like if you buy your kid and they're a console gamer and you buy them a game for Christmas, a lot of parents don't know that there's like day one patches, and those patches can be 8 gig. And if you only have, a really slow internet, uh, DSL, for example, they're excited. They open it up on Christmas, and then you're waiting for God
They
knows how
can't play
long.
it. Yeah.
They can't play it.
Yeah.
Now, some of the consoles have gotten better. I'll give them credit. Both Xbox and PlayStation, this last gen, starting with 4 and the Xbox before the Xbox One, will prompt you and say, "Hey, there's an update for this game. Do you want to continue anyway and play it?" And you can. So
Yeah.
I do like that they're doing that. I think they recognize that that was an issue.
So I'm gonna pick your brain as an IT guy here. What happened to the days of they never released updates, they never released bug fixes? It seems like that is such a common occurrence now, that we have to have update after update. Where back in the day, nothing. You got the game, and it was good for the entire life of the game.
So there's a lot of reasons for that. The primary reason, so it's a multi-layered answer, but the easiest way to answer that is this: complexity.
Mm.
So you have to remember that a lot of the engines, especially with like DOS games, for example, the games were not nearly as complex as they are today. Also, there was a limitation on memory, RAM specifically, and hard drive space.
Okay, that makes
There was
sense.
it was common practice in the DOS days where even there were two types of memory. There was a high memory and a low memory, and you had to tell the system which one to load it, XMS or EMS memory, and that had to be defined in what was called the auto exec bat config sys. So you would go into, and those were startup files that you would edit, and when you would boot the machine, I actually, as a kid, had different boot disk for different video games. I knew if I was playing a Lucasfilms game, if I wanted to play X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, that company, Lucasfilms, always preferred XMS memory to load it high. And I would have to make a boot disk with those special settings. And so that the computer would allocate memory appropriately for that game engine. Now, when they made the games, they were very limited on resources, so they had to keep them simple. And they had to do a lot with a very little. So that's the answer right there, right at the gate. Number one is complexity. Okay.
Yep.
Number two, now you have, so they're more complex now, but you also have the life cycle of how they do game development. Game development is a lot like software development. It's called DevOps, meaning it's iterative, meaning that you identify in your video game that, okay, there's 4 features we want. We want the inventory to do this. We want the character to fly, and we want a car that goes really, really fast. Well, those are features of the game. Back in the day, you would have coded all of that as one cohesive piece, took you whatever time you needed on it, and then doing it within those simple constraints of resources and then released it. Okay.
Yep.
And you had a cycle there of testing and just the way they did it. Nowadays, it's iterative where they will double down and do what's a sprint on just the car. We're only going to do the car. And what happens is it accelerates, it allows them to develop and program faster. The downside is that you're sacrificing holistic, whole game testing time. They may test the crap out of that car, right? But then the flying feature now comes. So then they're only doing flying. But the car and the flying feature, they interface with each other. There's a really good documentary on Skyrim. You'll love this. I believe you can find it on YouTube. And I shared it with my son because he wants to get into game dev. And it tells the story. They said when we were developing Skyrim at the very beginning of this RPG game, you awaken and you're on a cart and you've been arrested and you're sitting there with another prisoner and he's telling you this story, like, what are you in for, kind of a thing. And your eyes open. That's how the game starts. Well, when they coded it, they just like I said, they focused on the cart, on its movement. They focused on the wayfinding, how it makes its way through the map. They focused on the voice acting and how they're going to integrate that, the character models, all that stuff. But at one point, when they finally got each one of those sprints done and they're doing the whole total game testing, which they're cramped on time because they already have a committed date to launch the game, what ends up happening is um, the cart would move and all of a sudden it would just shoot up into the sky.
Oh, man.
Just it was just like a rocket, and it plagued them. They had no clue why.
Yeah.
And they worked and they worked and they worked and they stripped it all down and they tried to figure it was so complicated because you got the cart moving, you got the textures, you got all this stuff. In the end, what it ended up being is that there was one scene artist whose job was to make the woods look real. They have butterflies and they have floral flowers that would move, and there were scripts to make that happen, like when you brush by it and all this. Well, they had put bumblebees in the game,
Uh-oh.
and the bumblebees would fly around. Well, there's something when you have an object in a game, especially a 3D game, you have something called collision. And that is a mathematical setting that if something interfaces with it, what do I do? Well, they wanted the bumblebees to land on flowers, and the flowers have to have a collision. It's basically think of it like a surface so that the bumblebee can land on the flower and then take off. Well, that person had put the collision rate too high. What was happening? And the reason why they couldn't track it was random. A bumblebee would randomly come along and hit that cart and send it to space.
That's amazing.
So
That's a
that's an
badass bumblebee. Excuse my
so
language there.
so think about that. Think about that. The
Yeah.
complexity, you're building whole simulated worlds and environments with collision detection, with all of the scripting. Now you're going to inject AI into it, which is we've talked about quite a bit. That's really what it boils down to. It makes it infinitely harder for these companies to test every aspect of a game due to complexity.
Oh,
And that's
man.
why you get into this whole kick about games, not making it on launch. Then people get mad because it's all buggy. It's a miracle that some of these games even make it to market in the first place, and that's just because of the level of complexity that goes into them. So that's really what it boils down to: is as our compute power has increased on PCs and consoles and processors and RAM, so have the video games, and
Yeah.
thus that complexities, you know, it elongates the development time and bug tracking cycles.
No, that was great. I think that'll help a lot of other people too. I always wondered about that.
Yep, that's really what it boils down to. All right, brother. So we are getting close to the end of our time. Wow, this has been a
Yeah.
lot of topics, like a lot of good news this week. So just want to wish you a really, really good weekend. And when we want to wish everybody else a good weekend. And if you all didn't notice, for those of you that are listening, please let us know if Doug sounds better. He got a major upgrade there. If you're
Yeah.
watching on video, you can see that he's got a fancy Elgato mic. He's trying to keep up there with me. I've got the Blue Yeti, which I've had for a very long time. Both are impeccable mics, but you sound amazing, my friend. I just have to tell
Thank you.
you, it
Yeah,
sounds
I'm
really
doing
good.
great. I still need maybe a light, maybe a little better camera in the future, but I'm having a good time. I want my listeners and viewers to be able to hear me good and enjoy this conversation we have every week.
Your production value is you look if you go back to
It's
like
getting better
one,
every time.
it is, man. Like you sound really, really crystal clear now,
Yeah.
and I know our listeners will appreciate that. So just had to shout out Doug for upping his mic game
Awesome.
there.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, all right, everyone, you have a great week. Thank you for joining us on this episode 10. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you're watching us. That way, when these episodes launch weekly. We try to get them around the Sunday, Monday time frame, just if you're tracking. We want to be a part of your daily commute. What can I say? So we're trying to stay consistent. Right, Doug?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. You guys have a good time.
All right, everybody, take care.